Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Stephen King Cast, one man's musings on the works of Stephen King. Each week, I will review one entry in the bibliography of Stephen King in the chronological order of publication. And this week, I'm turning my attention, long overdue, to the adaptation of Stephen King's novella, adapted recently by Mike Flanagan, the auteur and genius of Netflix projects such as Midnight Mass, The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, The Fall of the House of Usher, and other Stephen King properties such as Doctor Sleep and Gerald's Game. That's right, I am here to talk about the 2025 movie starring Tom Hiddleston and a bunch of other actors and actresses, Stephen King's The Life of Chuck. So I'll be talking about this today. I have a lot of thoughts on it. It's definitely worth talking about. And before I get there, I just wanted to welcome everyone back who have decided to tune in and stay tuned in and for coming back, whether it's just been a week, couple weeks, or years at this point. Welcome back and thank you for your listenership. For anyone that is tuning in for the first time, welcome. Welcome to the Stephen King Cast. Let me tell you a little bit about this podcast, and I do apologize to those that have heard this time and time again, but I think that much like Stan Lee always said, every issue is someone's first issue of a comic book, and every episode of the Stephen King Cast is someone's first episode of the Stephen King Cast. So, once upon a time, I had finished a recent Stephen King novel. I do believe it was either 11/22, or Under the Dome, or Doctor Sleep, something within that time frame. And when I finished it, I wanted to hear someone's thoughts on it. I wanted to sit down and listen to a podcast on my drive. The way that I did when I would finish a movie or a television show, I would seek out one of my favorite podcasts just to hear what the conversation was around it and to get other people's analysis and thoughts and evaluations on it. And I opened up iTunes and I didn't find any podcasts for Stephen King. There were a couple, but nothing like I was searching for. Nothing existed what I wanted. So I thought about it, and ultimately I wound up creating the podcast that I myself would want to listen to. And thankfully, we now live in a world where there's a ton of Stephen King podcasts. There are so many things to choose from, which is great. It's a great existence and a great world to live in. So, what separates this podcast from others is the deep dive analysis that defined the first part of this show. So from Carrie all the way to the most recent book at that time, it's an incredibly rich deep dive. So that analysis is there for you for any of the books, short stories, novellas, and movie adaptations in the chronological order of publication. So feel free to start at the beginning and make your way through there, or you can just follow your heart's desire and pick and choose from your favorite King works and just to see what my thoughts are, me being a constant reader and a Stephen King fan. And since then, it's just been talking about Stephen King and Stephen King adjacent related content and stories and news. And so it's been fun. So welcome back, everyone. Welcome, everyone who is tuning in for the first time. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any thoughts at any point, write into stephenkingcast@yahoo.com. And if you have a couple minutes on your hands, a quick review, star rating, and a write-up on iTunes would really, really help me out. Like I said, there are a ton of Stephen King podcasts now, and a quick review just helps differentiate the podcast from other podcasts and just helps it stand out a little bit more. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. And speaking of listener feedback, we have Patrick who wrote in, "Hello, I love your podcast. I began reading Stephen King in the 1980s with It being my introduction and was instantly hooked. I still dream about Pennywise and have always felt a part of the Losers Club. By the mid-1990s, I slowed down and took a break from King's works for many years. My wife bought me a copy of 11/22/63, thinking I might like it. Boy, was she ever right. It renewed my interest in Uncle Steve, and I began reading his books again, having missed many over the years. Soon after, I found your podcast, and it brought me back to the beginning. I started reading King's novels in order from publication date. I have listened to many of your episodes of the books already read, but wait until I finish the novel collection before I listen to your podcast. I'm just finishing Skeleton Crew and will soon start where it all began for me, It. Absolutely love your insight, analysis, Kingisms, and Easter eggs. Fantastic job. Please don't stop the podcast. Question for you regarding the collections. You have gone back and completed reviews of some collections, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, Everything's Eventual, but you never review two of the Bachman books, Rage and Roadwork, unless I missed it. Any plans to go back and review these two early stories? Thank you again for the podcast. You helped reignite my love of reading. Patrick, thank you for writing in, and I'm glad that I helped play a part in rediscovering your love of Stephen King. Regarding those Bachman books, and it's interesting to be talking about Bachman books right now because there's definitely been a reexamination pop culturally of Bachman as a brand, with The Long Walk having just come out and The Running Man having just come out. As I record this, The Running Man is still in theaters, but I assume it will be on streaming sooner rather than later. So that's pretty cool that we're living in a world where the Bachman material is being brought to life. As you know, longtime listeners will know that the Bachman story that I would love to see more than any other brought to life is not one of those original batch of Bachman books, but the one that came out in 1997 in conjunction with Desperation, Bachman's version of the story, The Regulators. I think that the surreal, hard-hitting, action-packed, violent, cartoonish, strange, surreal story within The Regulators would make for a rich, vibrant mind trip of a movie. I would love to see it. Oh, it would be great. Regarding Roadwork, I don't remember one way or another. Honestly, as I had just talked about in the Long Walk review, when I hit that point in my reread to do the Long Walk, I was burnt out. I was towards the end of my own long walk when doing the podcast. I realized there were so many more miles to go, and it seemed never-ending. I was exhausted. I don't know why I had gotten into this project in the first place. I was kicking myself. I was really burnt out. I was very, very tired, and I really just wanted to get to it. That was the next story that I was going to dive into and review. And much like Patrick, that was the one that really kicked the doors open for me. And I really wanted to dive in and explore it with a keen sense of analysis. And as a result, I wound up creating, I think it was like a 3 or so part episode review, which you can just head on back and listen to. I'm very proud of that. But right before that, I almost just fell down metaphorically on the side of the road, and acquire 3 tickets back to back to back. I was ready for that to happen. Thankfully, I caught my second wind with it, and I powered through for a while. And that got me, and I think that I might have dipped a little bit after The Dark Tower as well. But I was able to get through. I'm very proud of being able to complete that part of the mission. But I would need to go back. I don't remember not doing road work, but I don't remember necessarily doing road work. I might have just stuck with The Running Man and The Long Walk because they were the two most prevalent Richard Bachman books. So Roadwork, I don't really have an excuse. I'm sorry for that. Rage, I don't know if I've talked about this before or not. I've just kind of not talked about Rage, and I don't ever want to talk about Rage, not because Stephen King did anything wrong. I don't blame Stephen King for writing the story that he did, but when he wrote the story, the content and topic of the story was not a national uh, uh, issue the way that it is now. And by issue, I mean unnecessary deaths being caused due to shootings and school shootings. And I don't want to shine a spotlight on it. I don't want to. It's not as if I would glorify it, but I don't want to spend my time reading a story about school shooting, and I don't want to spend my time discussing it. Um, there's really not much to discuss. And unfortunately, that novella predated this terrible, terrible, unnecessary issue that we have in this country. Um, and talking about it is such a quagmire. And I just don't want to spend any time on that topic. Stephen King himself has asked for this book to not be published anymore, and I don't really want to waste my time um, talking about it. And honestly, I don't want someone who has been the recipient or has felt the pain that comes from this in real life to tune into the Stephen King cast as some sort of form of escapism, and then have to deal with this. So I just it's not anything that I ever will talk about. So that's the explanation for Rage. Peter writes, "Hey, I just want to say hi and thank you for the awesome content on your channel. I came to know your channel a few months back, and it sent me into a rereading frenzy where I very much look forward to listening to your thoughts afterwards. I especially enjoy learning about Mr. King and where he was in his life while writing the books. I was a 12-year-old Danish kid when I fell in love with the cycle of the werewolf and then went on to read anything I could get my hands on in the Danish libraries back in the late 80s, early 90s. Nowadays, it's easier to find, and I enjoy rereading all the stuff and geeking out with your podcasts. Thanks, Peter from Denmark." Peter, thank you so much for writing in. I really appreciate anyone from overseas writing in. My experience of Stephen King does mirror a lot of people's experience with Stephen King within my understanding, which is, suburban kids growing up, in the 80s and 90s. Acquiring Stephen King content because he was so pervasive, throughout pop culture. So it really is interesting to be able to hear other people's experiences, especially if it's not taking place in America. So as always, if you have an experience of becoming a Stephen King fan and you don't reside in the States, please reach out, because it's just my way of understanding your culture a little bit more through a shared love of this particular author. All right, so anyone, please, at any point, write into stephenkingcast@yahoo.com and leave a review on iTunes. That would really help me out. All right, everyone, now let's do it. I'm going to talk about the life of Chuck, and how I'm going to talk about the life of Chuck is I'm going to read the Wikipedia summary, just so I have a basis of understanding, and then I'll get into some thoughts about the life of Chuck. All right, from Wikipedia, The Life of Chuck, Act 3, Thanks, Chuck. Middle school teacher Marty Anderson notes several unusual things happening around the world, from natural disasters to the worldwide loss of the internet. Several billboards and advertisements popping up everywhere display the picture of an accountant named Charles Chuck Krantz with the words, "Charles Krantz, 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck." Marty's ex-wife Felicia Gordon calls him, and they ponder if the end of the universe is upon them. Marty describes Carl Sagan's cosmic calendar, a method to visualize the age of the universe in a single calendar year. Both of them begin seeing more disasters and supernatural occurrences. After losing telephone service and electricity, Marty goes to Felicia's home so they can stay with one another in the universe's final moments, watching as the stars quickly vanish. The end of the universe is revealed to be connected to 39-year-old Chuck, who is bedridden in a hospital, dying from a brain tumor. He is accompanied by his wife Ginny and his son Brian. Chuck passes away as Ginny tells him 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck. Meanwhile, Marty tells Felicia, "I love you," just as the universe abruptly ends. Act 2, Buskers Forever. 9 months before his death, Chuck is attending a banking conference. While walking outside, he stumbles upon a busking drummer named Taylor Frank, who sees Chuck and begins drumming for him. He is moved to dance on the spot, attracting a crowd. Janice Halliday, a young woman who had been dumped by her boyfriend via text, joins Chuck and they dance together, although he is momentarily hampered by a headache before continuing on the crowd's joy. Chuck and Janice help Taylor pack up, and the three split the profits at Taylor's insistence. Chuck admits he is unsure why he decided to dance as soon as he heard Taylor's playing. Taylor suggested they form a traveling troupe, but he and Janice decline, and the three part ways with a hug. Chuck resumes his day, still pondering why he danced, but in the coming months, as his health declines, he has the feeling that the world was made for just that moment. Act 1. I Contain Multitudes. As a young child, Chuck loses his father and pregnant mother in a car crash. He then lives with his paternal grandparents, Albie and Sarah. The bright Sarah teaches Chuck how to enjoy dancing. The sardonic Albie turns to alcohol after his son's death and forbids him to enter their house's cupola, hinting that he had seen the ghosts of people there before they died. During a conversation about this, a TV in the background is showing Carl Sagan describing the cosmic calendar. At school, Chuck asks his idealistic teacher, Mrs. Richards, the meaning of the phrase, I contained multitudes, from the Walt Whitman poem, Song of Myself. Richards explains to him that he contains multitudes, with the memories he gains over the course of his life forming a universe in his head. Sarah dies after collapsing in a supermarket, worsening Albie's alcoholism. Inspired by his grandmother, Chuck joins his school's dance extracurricular program, Twirlers and Spinners, where he emerges as the best dancer of the club and teaches them how to moonwalk. Chuck has a crush on Kat McCoy, an older and taller girl who is frequently partnered with him. Despite having a boyfriend, she asks him to share a dance at their school's fall fling. Chuck expresses his interest in pursuing dance to his grandfather, but Albie dismisses him and instead encourages him to be an accountant like him, sharing how math is seen and necessary in everything. At the fall fling, Chuck is hesitant at first, but decides to let loose and dance with Kat in front of a large crowd, earning cheers from everyone, including Marty and Felicia, with the former revealed to be a teacher at Chuck's school. After being kissed by Kat, Chuck dances by himself outside the school field, but he injures his hand in the process, which leaves a scar. Years later, Albie dies, leaving the teenage Chuck to inherit everything, including their house. His maternal grandparents from Omaha travel to stay with him until he goes off to college. Now in possession of the cupola's key, Chuck finally decides to enter it and sees an apparition of himself on his deathbed as an adult, which he identifies through his scar. Despite this, he dismisses his vision, promising to live life until it runs out, saying, I am good enough, I am smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. Wait, is that what he says? No, I don't think that that's exactly what he says. Oh, no, that's right. He says, I am wonderful, I deserve to be wonderful, and I contain multitudes. Sorry. Just needed to throw that Stuart Smalley shout out there. All right, so let's talk about the life of Chuck. All right, so prior to it coming out, I got really excited in the fall of 24, I think, is when it. I think I would say the fall of 24. It started to hit the film festival scene, and there was a lot of buzz coming out. You know, I had gotten excited about it prior to that because I liked the story. B, Mike Flanagan took it on, and to me that was something that I thought was a great pairing. First of all, let's stop for a minute and talk about Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan, his works, his non-Stephen King works are masterpieces to me. Midnight Mass is probably one of the most thoughtful, tragic, deeply moving pieces of television that I have ever encountered. It is an incredible examination on faith and the corruptive influence of religion, but exploring that duality of the power of faith and the importance of faith and love and connection while simultaneously explaining the vampirism of an organized religion. It's incredible. It's incredible. So Midnight Mass is a masterpiece. Haunting of Hill House. I watched it again last Halloween season. I just wanted to feel melancholic. I wanted to just go back with that family. I wanted to just see where my love of Mike Flanagan began again, and it did not disappoint. Uh, the haunting of Usher was, again, that was so enjoyable. He ratcheted it up a little bit with that. Bruce Greenwood was awesome. So he is able to wield these sprawling uh, stories with an immense cast, and he seems to be a director that gets the best out of everyone. He seems to be a director who is able to share his vision collaboratively with those he's working with to allow for a real collaborative experience. He certainly inspires loyalty within those he works with, as he constantly brings back the same troupe of actors and actresses. Um, and he is a powerhouse in terms of being a great director and an incredible writer. And when you pair these things together, uh, especially with people who are on his wavelength and know how to bring these words and actions to life, magic is made. And he is also one of the rare people who understands the sensibility of Stephen King and how to bring that off of the page and recreate it through an audiovisual medium to create that same sense without making it cheesy. I guess is the best way of saying it, because if you there's been some adaptations that just rip the dialogue straight out of a Stephen King book and it doesn't translate, or specific scenes from a Stephen King book that doesn't translate. Flanagan is able to make faithful adaptations of his books without it being slavish, without it losing the magic, and more importantly, he recreates the feeling of reading a Stephen King novel. Um, whether it be Gerald's Game, which I thought was an unfilmable movie, or Doctor Sleep, which is the bravery that Mike Flanagan has for being able to do that movie when Stephen King himself hates the movie. The movie is more famous than the book. It's a sequel to this one of the best films ever made. And a lot of people were frustrated with the book itself because it wasn't anything like the Shining. And so Flanagan did the God's work with that by being able to merge the book and the movie together, make it its own thing, uh, and be truthful and faithful to the book Doctor Sleep. Um, it really was incredible. All the while, bringing those elements of what make Mike Flanagan, which complements the Stephen King side of things. I think that their sensibilities are very much aligned, which is why he's the perfect person to be able to bring his stories to life. So when I heard he was doing the Life of Chuck, I was excited because I really enjoyed the novella, which was found in the If It Bleeds collection. Um, as I kept hearing about um, the cast list, I grew more and more excited to have Tom Hiddleston. I'm a big fan. Play this character. I thought that was incredibly interesting, and I feel that even to this day, Stephen King is still so synonymous with horror. Yet I would say among pop culture, some of like his most beloved work is still the Shawshank Redemption, and that is not horror. That is just a treatise on the human condition and the perseverance of the human heart. despite being trapped in horrible situations, and what human connection will do, and how we will continue to learn from each other if we have empathy for one another. It is an incredibly human story. There are no killer clowns. There are no haunted cars. There are no rabid dogs. It's just a story of uh, people finding connection, and persevering. And it's still considered one of the most beloved movies of all time, and that's Stephen King. That is Stephen King. And though it's not as big as it was in the 80s and 90s, Stand By Me is still up there. The Green Mile is up there. Um, and Green Mile has supernatural elements to it, but it's not that scary, that scariness. So I thought that, the time had come again for someone to bring to life one of Stephen King's more empathetic, non-horror stories. And The Life of Chuck, I felt, could be part of that conversation of the Shawshank Redemption, of Stand By Me. I thought that it had a chance. And so when it started to hit the festival circuit, I think that it was the Toronto International Film Festival. There was a lot of buzz. There was a lot of buzz, and I got really, really excited, and I was very, very happy for everyone involved, and I couldn't wait to see it. And then it was released in June of 2025. And it didn't set the world on fire. I just felt that the buzz coming out of the festival circuit in the fall of 24 had that momentum continued. I think that it might have been an Oscar contender. But it seemed to come and go in theaters very, very, very quickly. And it almost got overshadowed by the awaited release of the fall's premiere of The Running Man, starring Glenn Powell and Edgar Wright. And as you know, in between, there was a little movie called The Long Walk, which I highly, highly recommend. So I say all of this because there was a lot of buzz. I was very, very excited. I thought that it had the chance, with the combination of Mike Flanagan behind the wheel, with the actors that he had, and the story being what it was, that it had a chance to be in conversation and in the same level as The Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me. Unfortunately, it doesn't get there. It's good. It's good. I wanted it to be great. I liked it. I wanted to love it. And part of it, I think, is that it's a very faithful adaptation to the life of Chuck. And I think that that's the problem. I think that it is too faithful. I think that it's faithful to a fault. So the novella, just like the movie itself, is broken into three parts, working backwards from the end, which is really interesting, and I like it. I just think that both the Stephen King version and the Mike Flanagan version needed another draft or two. It feels like there are three disparate stories that are duct taped together, and it doesn't merge together elegantly. It feels very stapled and glued on, duct taped together. It's kind of messy the way these three parts are put together. And it never feels organic. It doesn't feel genuine. It makes for an interesting experiment, but one that I don't think fully pulls it off, unfortunately. With that being said, it's still enjoyable, but there's something missing. There's something missing to tie it all together elegantly that keeps it from being transcendent. And it has the potential to do that and be there, but unfortunately, it doesn't get there. And I think that even Stephen King said that these were three different stories in his head, and he put them together, and it feels like it. So it is a little bit messy. It isn't as seamless as I think it needs to be to get to that next tier. And watching it, uh, with my wife, who is not a Stephen King super fan the way that I am, who does not know about the life of Chuck. I watched this happen in real time. I was watching the movie, but I was also watching her out of the corner of my eye. And when it started, she was into it. Like, she was really into it. She didn't know what was going on. It was weird. She wanted to know what was going on. She didn't know why all these billboards were popping up. The way that the world was ending was so interesting. There was so much interest and excitement and curiosity, and the tone of it, despite the world ending, the tone isn't what you normally get from end of the world stories, which makes it so fascinating. And I watched as the interest in the movie dropped with her. And she, was into it the rest of the movie, but never to the heights of that first chapter. And I think that is something that many people might feel and see and experience. So it was just interesting for me to be able to notice that. But let's stop for a minute and really look at that first part, because it really is such a highlight of the movie. Like I said, the tone of it is not what you typically get out of end of the world stories. The world is ending strangely because everything is just falling apart. It's not ending because of natural disasters or global warming. That's a part of it, but everything's happening. Everything is just shutting down, and the universe is just, not just the world, but the universe is ending. And watching people's reactions to it with a weary resignation, but also kindness and empathy, with understanding and wonder. It's not defined by panic or human depravity, the way that so many end of the world stories makes for a unique experience with this being an end of the world story. A crevice can just open up and someone will just step aside and look at it, and keep on walking. Or someone will talk about a sinkhole that just opened up, and oh, good thing that I wasn't there. And it's not a commentary on the world falling apart. It's just really an examination of people accepting the reality that they're faced with as much kindness as they possibly can, and seeking out those moments of being together, and of being able to be kind and human with one another. And that's really important. I find that to be very, very important, to convey in our stories, that not everything has to be doom and gloom. So I want to compare this to the recent collected edition of Stephen King inspired stories set within the world of The Stand that came out in August. It's the end of the world as we know it, where so many of these stories were the opposite to what we get with The Life of Chuck, Part 3, Thanks Chuck. So many of these stories are about human depravity and the awful things that one person will do to another, and how at the end of the day we really are just animals. We've seen this time and time again. And what I like about The Life of Chuck, Part 3, Thanks Chuck, it shows that no, we are more than animals. There is something to us that, as we'll get into, we contain multitudes. But that first part really is something special. The way that the stars go out at the end, it's haunting and it's scary on a existential level. But from a place of just being sincere and earnest, being able to face the end with someone you love and be able to say that I love you before the stars go out. It's kind of the most important thing uh, in the world, because that's just what life is, isn't it? I talked about this a little bit on the Long Walk review, where Pete, gives a speech to Gary about, it doesn't matter if it's, 30 years or, you know, 30 months, 3 days, or 3 hours. Like the time that you have with the person that you're with that you care about, and that cares about you, that's what life is. At the end of the day, our lives are so finite, and this is eloquently reproduced in this movie through the use of Carl Sagan and his timeline. But we're nothing, and our lives blink in and out in a split second, and that makes us simultaneously meaningless and meaningful, because this is it and that's all we're going to have. So we'd better make the most out of it. And in existence, this is going to be the only time in infinity that you are doing what you are doing right now, the exact way that you're doing it, with the people that you're doing it, the feelings that you have right now. Um, And because no one will share that same experience, no one will have exactly your same point of view, no one will feel exactly the way that you feel, or the way that you engage with the world, or think about things, or taste things, or love things, or laugh at things. No one will have your exact point of view or your preferences in infinity. No one will have that. No one will be you the way that you are you. And no one will have the people in your life the way that you have the people in your life. That makes you so special in the eyes of the universe. So even though your life will blink in and out as if you are nothing in an indifferent universe, no one will ever be you again. And that makes you wholly unique and special, on a cosmic level of infinity. And how special is that? So the fact that Mike Flanagan was able to capture all of this, I think is really truly beautiful. And all of the little interactions that the characters have with one another, played wonderfully by a great cast, a great cast of. We have Chiwetel Ejiofor, Karen Gillan. We have Nick Offerman as the narrator all throughout. Carl Lumley. We have Matthew Lillard. We have Raul Coley. We have Violet McGraw. David Dasmelchian. Harvey Gillen. So just a wonderful cast in this part. And later on, we have Tom Hiddleston in the next part. And in the final part, we have Kate Siegel. We have Mia Sara. We have Luke Skywalker, the Joker himself, Mark Hamill. So it really is this incredible cast that you get to see interact with one another. Unfortunately, they're all limited. You can, by very small interactions, but the fact that this movie is able to boast this cast, it's really really special. So to see to see Marty interact with all of these different famous actors, it was really something special. And the one that stood out to me was Carl Lumley, and the two of them having that particular moment. What's great about Flanagan is that he in his repertoire of actors to choose from, he's able to deploy some of them like a secret weapon, and Carl Lumley is one of them. Kate Siegel's another. Bruce Greenwood is one, and Robert Longstreet. There's people he's just able to just come out like a, I don't know, just this ringer who's able to just completely steal the show, and get the job done. And Carl Lumley is one of those guys. he is able to create like an almost otherworldliness of kindness and thought and connection and being in the moment. He did this wonderfully by playing Dick Halloran in Doctor Sleep, and he's able to do it here in his small role. But it's a great little part. So this was a really great experience to watch part 3. Thanks Chuck. Then part 2 comes, and it's the famed dancing scene. This, I remember reading about this as it was being filmed, whether it's just lore or unofficial marketing for the movie, but Tom Hiddleston, reportedly, burned through the shoes in his feet filming in Georgia on the hot pavement. So one thing about me, the act of dancing and the act of being sung to are things that I'm not against dancing. I like dancing, but this level of dancing and I don't know where I'm going with. Where am I going with this? I don't know. I just there is such a sincerity and earnestness to this that my cynical self kind of just bristles against. With that being said, the message of this and the performance of Tom Hiddleston, just the physical performance as a song and dance man it's really it's special to see. But the message of this is important. To when the opportunity arises, to take advantage of this opportunity, to fill your soul with the thing that your soul needs. Take it. Take that opportunity. And I think that it's also important to see Mike Flanagan as someone who is able to provide opportunity to others. He does this for Tom Hiddleston, who will not be here forever. But now this performance, this really classic Gene Kelly-ish dance number has now been immortalized. And again, in a story that is about finite things and finding the joy and finding the purpose in your life with the finite time that you have, being able to do this is important. I know that Mike Flanagan also talked about the fact that he was able to cast his son in this movie, and how profound it is for him and Kate Siegel to have that and to immortalize this moment and this love within a story that is conveying this, that it is important. So there is a bleeding of worlds here, where the message is being conveyed through the content, but the creatives are also doing the same thing for those that are a part of the movie to help underscore the importance of this belief and this message to live life, what it comes down to. And what I think is important here is the nuance to what is presented here in this second part, especially in context of what we learn about his passion and the life that he begins to take with the concluding chapter. And let me pause and kind of talk about what I mean here. I had listened to a review of The Life of Chuck where the hosts had a debate on the ending of the movie, where Chuck, as a boy or as a youngish man, sees the apparition of himself dying, and what that would do to you, and what it would do to these particular hosts in changing their lives. And there was some pushback against the movie and what the message of the movie is, that if, seeing your death and knowing that you have this passion of dancing, why did he resign himself to be an accountant instead of living life to its fullest? And that, to me, I don't see it the same way, because I just see it as just a metaphor for life itself. And it doesn't matter if you know the exact way in which you are going to die, you know it's going to happen. And we all don't go out and pursue that dream that we had as a child. So, as you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be a writer. It's what I wanted. I didn't pursue that. And just because I'm not pursuing it doesn't mean that I am not living my life to the fullest that I have within me to live. Love my life. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have in my life. I am grateful for everything that has been handed to me and everything that I've worked for. I was home today and my dog was jumping all over me. And I was just trying to sit on the couch and I couldn't sit on the couch because she's like on top of me and then on my lap simultaneously behind me, hugging me, just burrowing herself into me. And I just grabbed her and I held her and I sniffed her and I just felt my hands in her fur. And in that moment, I just said thank you, to her and to the universe. Just thank you, because this is the most important thing that there is. That I have this right now, at this moment, this unconditional love and this ability to be able to share that with this other living creature. How lucky am I, right? Does it matter that I'm not Stephen King? Does it matter that I'm not writing, uh, you know, book after book on the New York Times bestsellers? That would be great. But it doesn't stop me from enjoying my life. I love my life. I'm able to do this. I'm able to share this with all of you. I have found my entryway into tapping in to that creative part of me. It wasn't about writing. It wasn't about pursuing a life of constantly writing. It was about exploring a creative part of me. I thought that as a youth, that meant that that's what I had to do, but that's not what I had to do. And I dabbled in it. And I have been thankful enough and grateful enough and lucky enough to be able to publish about 15 or so short stories. Check mark, done. Okay? That was great. But most importantly, I was able to combine creativity and critical thinking through the creation of this podcast that I then get to share with everyone, which is a wonderful thing. And it's been able to allow me to connect to a lot of people all over the world, which is great, right? So to me, the message isn't you have to pursue the thing that you think that you need to, but find the joy where you can. And understand that life is going to be difficult at times and challenging at times, and we don't always get to do the things that we want. And Chuck becomes an accountant, which allows him to find a family. And then that gives him, though we don't really see it, truly explored, what I assume to be a deep level of contentment and happiness and love. And through the birth of his children and the life of his children, a form of immortality. And there's something magical and wonderful about that. So does it matter that he isn't pursuing a life of dance and being a dancer, though he has a gift? Is there a tragedy to that? Possibly. But does that stop him from finding the joy that comes from dancing and it fills his soul when he can? No. I think that he is. And I think that that's a magical moment when he is able to stop everything and dance, because that's what life is. You stop and you dance when you can. And for me, it's doing this. It's talking about stories. It's sitting down. It's reading a book. It's enjoying a movie. It's exploring other worlds. It's living someone else's dream that they are presenting to me through a written word or through a comic book, through a painting, through a poem, through a movie, through a television show. Being able to share that world and that dream is incredibly important. This past year, in January, it'll almost be a year now, which is wild to think and sad. It'll be sad that we will now be a year without David Lynch. David Lynch passed away in January, and that really, really affected me. Because, I was into David Lynch before I was into Stephen King, which is the 80s were crazy. The fact that can be true. I got into Twin Peaks when I was in third grade. So he has been a part of my life. And that day in January when I saw it pop up on Facebook that he was gone, it just truly devastated me. But David Lynch's perspective on life is so profound. And then he never stopped, and he was always creating. He always created. He never stopped. But it wasn't just one thing, and he found the joy in everything. A donut, a cigarette, cup of coffee, glass of wine, and creating, and the relationships of the people that mattered in his life. So, kind of going all over the place right now, but I think that that's important. To find those things in your life that will fill your soul when you can. Embrace it, love it, and be a part of it. Okay? Because at the end of the day, it's a lovely, lovely celebration of life. It's about connection and finding connection, even fleeting moments, whether it's a school dance or a dance on a street with a stranger, whether it's just sitting on a bench and sharing a moment with a stranger as the world ends, or not even as the world ends, just share in that moment. It's a lovely message, and it really was a good movie. I wanted to love it. I really wanted to love it. I didn't love it. I really liked it, and maybe in time I will come to love it. I just had really, really highest hopes, based on everyone that was involved. I wanted it to be in the echelon of Shawshank, Green Mile, The Body. It wasn't, but I hope that it gets a lot of. I hope that a lot of people see it, and I hope a lot of people absorb the kindness that's embedded with it. But listen, here is the thing. Regardless of how I feel, even though I don't think that as a whole it fully gels, as I was watching it, there was a moment in the third act which I believe will become legendary. It's a moment that I think is going to be synonymous with Stephen King himself. And I think that it's going to cement Kate Siegel as a fixture in our memories forever as well. She will be forevermore linked to a moment that occurs in this movie that I think will be shared and repeated and talked about for a long time. When it began, and I was watching it, I almost completely just lost it on the couch. What I mean is I just almost started blubbering. It really, really hit me. I'm going to get to it in a second. I'm going to read it. But first, let's just talk about it. It's a beautiful speech, wonderfully performed by Kate Siegel. It's a truly wonderful message. It's a great moment. It's the theme of the movie, and it's hit overhead our heads. It's bashed over our brains for sure, but it's important to recognize how nuanced and complex we are as people. As individuals, we have contradictory natures built into us. We aren't one thing, and the current binary nature of society has completely obliterated any space for understanding how nuanced we are. And this speech, the We Contain Multitudes speech, is a wonderful celebration of the self and the potential that we carry within us. It's a beautiful moment. It really is. It's beautiful, certainly, but that's not why I want to talk about it or why I think it's going to be remembered. And I feel kind of icky even talking about the reason why it affected me so much, because I don't even like broaching this subject, but I think that it is important. Watching this scene in a movie about living life, understanding that death comes for us all, it hit me, just as I talked about David Lynch, it hit me that Stephen King is not always going to be here. And he's always been a part of my life. But that's not always going to be the case. And for a Stephen King fan, if you watch this scene through this perspective, what a beautiful tribute to the man who truly contains multitudes. What's in there between my hands right now? All the people you know, everything you see, everything you know. The world, Chuck. Planes in the sky, manhole covers in the street. Every thing that lives inside your head will get bigger and brighter and more detailed and complex. You will build cities and countries and continents, and you will fill them with people and faces, real and imagined. You understand? Don't stop there. You fill the whole thing with everyone you ever met, everyone you will ever know, everyone you ever just imagine. It'll be a universe, a whole universe right between my hands. You contain multitudes. I just have a feeling that it's going to be shared in many in memoriam segments and used as evidence of his incredible imagination. To me, having this maternal figure bend down, hold his face in her hands, and confirm this incredible ability that he was born with, this ability to create. It was such a wonderful testament to Stephen King, and it's a wonderful testament to the potential that we all carry within each other and ourselves. But for me to think about this through the perspective of everything that he was able to give to us and has been able to give to us and continues to give to us, that he hasn't just created a universe with his mind, but a multiverse with his mind. And it has been so rich. It's a great tribute to Stephen King and a great tribute to imagination itself, and that what we all can bring, and the universes that we all can share. So those are my thoughts on the life of Chuck. If you have any thoughts on the life of Chuck and everything and anything related to Stephen King, write into stephenkingcast@yahoo.com. There's an episode that I'm going to be working on where I want to talk about Welcome to Derry a little bit. I have reviewed Welcome to Derry episodes 1 through 3 in one episode, and then episodes 4 through 6 in another episode. I will give my final thoughts on Welcome to Derry in episodes 7 and 8. But there's one thing that I want to do, which I think could be fun, and that's if you were an executive at HBO, and you could greenlight any property based on it as an intellectual property, what focus would you take? When given this opportunity, they created It, Welcome to Derry. What would you do? What would you do if you had that power? Write into stephenkingcast@yahoo.com. Be as detailed as possible, because I want to turn this into an entire episode where we share each other's ideas. There are 3 ideas that I currently have that I think could be fun to be able to watch on HBO. And I just want to share those with you. But please, I want to fill out this episode. So write into stephenkingcast@yahoo.com. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Facebook. Write in, like I said, to stephenkingcast@yahoo.com. Leave a review on iTunes. And may you have long days and pleasant nights, where I will see you here next time, where MOON spells Stephen King Cast.